The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fed15 podcast presented by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we'll discuss the latest news and info that feds need to know in 15 minutes or less. So whether you are a seasoned federal employee or whether you're just starting out in your career, Fed15 has got you covered. Grab your coffee, kick back, and we'll tell you what you need to know but might have missed in the federal space this week. We are your hosts. I am Katelyn Murray, and I am joined by Mr. Dan Sipe himself. How you doing, Dan?
I'm well, Katelyn. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing good. Getting my 2026 reading in. So I just finished a really amazing book called The Correspondent, written by Miss Virginia Evans, and she is an author in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, so not that far from me. And it was an incredible book. It's an epistolary novel, so it's told through letters of a 70-something-year-old woman. It follows her for a while, who was a federal judge's clerk. So it does have a little bit of a federal tie-in there, but highly recommend. Really good book.
Very cool. Actually, I just finished Scott Galloway's latest book, Notes on Being a Man. And it's not what you think. It's not what you think. It's very, very interesting. And, kind of runs the gamut, talks about some of the things young people are facing right now. My children are experiencing some different economic opportunities and challenges than I did at the same age.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was sort of an interesting insight on it. And also pretty good clarion call for a generation of young men out there and old men too, which is why I enjoyed reading it. I enjoy Galloway anyway. He's a pretty smart guy. So
excellent.
So what do we have up for our feds to kind of start kicking off the new year?
Yeah, well, it's a new year, so it's tax time again for all of us. So the statements will be coming in, and 1099s will be coming in. So look forward to that. So we're going to talk a little bit about taxes today and how taxes don't retire, right? Two things that are inevitable. Death and taxes. So we're going to spend a little time talking about the former today. And then, Dan, I believe you'll be discussing with us a TSP action plan around, how to manage bias in investing, which I think is a really interesting piece that we've got up on the blog this week. But before we get there, let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, which is
everybody loves them.
Yeah. You don't love talking about taxes? Oh, I love talking.
I love talking about taxes, but I don't think a lot of people share my enthusiasm.
Oh, they don't. So we're gonna talk about taxes and just some things to be aware of. So often when folks are, planning for retirement, we're planning for, making sure that there's enough money in the pot to cover spending, right? That's typically the focal point for a lot of folks. And so they're looking at what they're spending, they're looking at their healthcare costs, but taxes can be a little bit hard to put your finger on. And because of that, because the way our brains work, for most of us, we're vaguely aware that we need to be concerned about and interested in taxes in retirement. I don't think anybody thinks that they just completely stop. But because we can't put a pin in it and it's not an expense that we can project with 100% accuracy all the time, it tends to elude our planning a lot of times when you're planning for yourself. So obviously, retiring doesn't eliminate your taxes. The combination of your pension, your TSP and pre-tax IRA withdrawals, your Social Security income, and then any part-time income that you have planned for retirement can keep you in a bracket that may be similar to where you're at right now. This has potentially never been as true as it is right now in this very moment, because we have the combination of, yes, when you retire as a Fed, you get your pension, you get that Social Security income if you're under FERS, and you ideally have a portfolio that you can use to supplement. So your income. The idea is that there's not as much of an income drop. But what is different about right now is currently our tax brackets are historically low. So if you're thinking I'm going to retire and then I won't be working anymore, so my income is going to drop massively, and therefore my taxes are going to drop massively, that may not be true. Your income is likely maybe not going to drop as much as you think, depending on what your goals are. And really, moreover, that tax bracket may not drop because since we're at historically low brackets right now, we could see new tax legislation in the future to increase those tax brackets. You could be, at less income in a higher tax bracket. That is a real thing that could happen. So really important to manage when and how much you're pulling out of your portfolio, as much as how much you have saved for retirement. So a couple of talking points here. I think, understanding your income stack, that term income stack refers to all of your income sources. So we talked about some of them up top, your pension, your Social Security, part-time work that you have lined up, contractor work that you have lined up, and then TSP and IRA withdrawals. If you are somebody who is, blessed with an inheritance of sorts, if part of that inheritance is taxable, you're going to want to understand how much you need to take out each year from that and how that's going to impact your taxes. Also, longer term, looking at the split between pre-tax and Roth in your own portfolio. RMDs, come later in life, right? And that also impacts your overall tax picture. So looking at TSP withdrawals and kind of planning around those, obviously, if you are withdrawing from your pre-tax portion of your TSP, those distributions are going to be taxable. Every dollar is taxable at income at the at the federal level. And then depending on what state you live in, it may also be taxable at the state level or not. Looking at, again, that balance between pre-tax and Roth, on your pre-tax balances, you are required to take what are called required minimum distributions, RMDs. When they start for you can be 70 and a half all the way up to age 75. And it depends on your birth year. You're going to want to hit our site to learn more about that. It's more than we can get into here on the podcast. But being aware, if I've got $1 million pre-tax TSP balance and I've got $100,000 in Roth, sure, I need to be aware that my pre-tax balance is much heavier than my Roth balance. And also that pre-tax balance probably is going to continue to grow through my retirement period. So by the time I'm 75 and I need to take my RMD, it's going to be a pretty big RMD.
Yes.
You can work to address the balance between Roth and pre-tax ahead of RMDs and kind of do that mindfully to smooth out the tax ride there. Note on Social Security and Medicare implications, a reminder that up to 85% of your Social Security can be taxable depending on your income level and where you're at. For the Medicare implications, you've got a 2-year look back on your modified adjusted gross income for setting your Medicare Part B premiums. The long and short of that is for Part B premiums, your income really doesn't matter until you hit 63. At 63, it matters. And that's your income at age 63 is going to determine what your Part B premiums are at 65. Your income at 64 determines the Part B premiums at 66. You want to be aware of that. Some people listening to this may say, but Katelyn, I'm 63 and I'm still working. Isn't that going to mean my Part B premiums are going to be huge because I'm still working? There is a form to address that. If your income from when you were 63 has you working and then you're retired at 65 paying for Medicare, there's a form to file to address that. They're not going to make you pay based on your income. You want to look at taxes as essentially like a year-to-year playbook, right? So we want to time our large withdrawals for the more favorable tax year.
Sure.
We want to make sure that, if we're retiring at the end of 2025 and our annual leave is getting paid out in 2026, that we're accounting for that in 2026 before we make any kind of large withdrawals like Roth conversions, okay? Or large withdrawals to pay down, not necessarily that I'm recommending this, but to pay down your mortgage, right? You don't want to accidentally blow your taxes up. Using asset location strategically, so making sure that income earning investments are in that pre-tax IRA so that you're not having to pay income tax on dividends that are being paid to your portfolio and not you. You want to make sure that your more aggressive investments typically are in your Roth IRA because you're not paying taxes on the gain there. So just some examples there. Again, not financial advice, just kind of giving you some examples so you can, think of ways to apply this information. And lastly, we want to talk about if you are somebody who is charitably inclined, if you have charitable giving goals, you could consider some charitable strategies in order to smooth out your tax ride and in order to help you address maybe the balance between pre-tax and Roth if you are somebody who is out of balance towards the pre-tax side, which is most Feds. You could consider qualified charitable distributions to satisfy your RMDs when that time does come so that you aren't taking that massive hit on the RMDs. And you could also consider pairing Roth conversions with your charitable giving strategies through something like a donor advised fund or another charitable giving vehicle to kind of turbocharge your giving and reap tax benefits at the same time. That strategy that I just mentioned is very individualized and way too complex to get into on today's episode. But if you're curious about that, hit our website. We've got some articles on it. Or you can always email us at meetings@stwserv.com. And my last piece of advice on the tax side, a good CPA and a good CFP team that can consult together on your behalf and loop you in on those communications is absolutely worth its weight in gold, right?
Agree.
So I work with a lot of clients. I've got a lot of folks that self-file. In a lot of cases, when we're getting into these complex tax strategies like Roth conversions and charitable giving, and we're pairing all of these things together, it is way more optimized to have a CPA. And I know that they're not free, but what you save in the long run on your taxes and, things like that, it tends to pay its own way. That's not a financial promise. It's just a word to the wise, always, look into professional help. I always say I don't do my own dentistry, and there's a reason for that. So
absolutely.
So Dan,
Yes.
I'm talking to the people about taxes and how to minimize that, but tell us how to make money so that we have to pay taxes in the first place.
Well, yes, but I'm also going to tell you how not to screw up.
Yes.
So here's the thing, 24-hour news cycle. Once upon a time, if an article came out in a newspaper, it influenced the market. Now it can be a tweet. That will do it. So it's instantaneous. And it can be overwhelming to try and keep up with all that. And if you feel you must react to everything you encounter, sooner or later, I believe it'll cause a problem for you where your thrift savings plan is concerned. Okay. So this is something, and I want to be clear, I'm not giving financial advice here. This is not meant to be taken as financial advice. This is for information only. Consult your personal advisor. If you don't have one, hit us up. We'll help you any way we can. But I'm going to say this as an axiom. You may not feel you need a planner. That doesn't mean you don't need a plan. And that's how you get around all of this noise that can cause you to try and steer a giant truck, which is what TSPs, 401ks, 403bs are, like a Formula One race car. Okay. And you can't. They're not that nimble. They feel like they might be, but they're not. So plans need discipline and structure to help avoid those emotional mistakes. So again, that negative tweet, that thing that pops up in your social media feed that tells you to do this or do that, that is almost guaranteed over time to cause you a serious problem. So one of the tips that we have is for you to adopt an investment policy statement, as simple as possible, one pager. So what that's going to do, you're going to sit down and you're going to take a little bit of time to define your goals, determine your risk tolerance, how much market movement can you ignore? Okay, that's an element of risk tolerance, and determine what your rebalancing rules will be. And I can't stress rebalancing enough, because whatever you set up for your TSP, unless it's sitting in G, it's going to move around. Okay. And within that investment policy statement, I strongly encourage you to have some sort of sentence in there that says, I will not react to headlines. So choose that strategy and stick with it. If you don't feel you can, grab an L fund. Are they perfect? No. Are they better than trying to whip the wheel over and over again based on the news? Yes. Okay. But if you come to our webinars, if you read our content, you can see that you can build your own allocation using the 5 core funds. And yes, we have some resources to help. Katelyn wrote a fantastic article called Investing for Feds, Key Concerns when it comes to structuring your portfolio. Check that out. It's on the website. The hardest part of this step is sticking with it. And it's hard to be non-reactionary when it comes to your portfolio. If you need help with this step, good idea. Work with a financial professional, okay, that will keep you from grabbing a hold of that. Katelyn, how many times have you met with somebody for the first time and they're sitting in G and you say, how long have you been in G? They say, oh, I got scared last year, so I moved everything over. But now I'm ready to come back out.
Yeah. Well, last year or a couple years back.
Oh, that hurts worse.
You know, that's the issue. Getting out of the market. When do you get back in?
Absolutely. You got to be right twice. The next tip, don't forget your rebalancing. If you choose the individual funds, you're going to need to set reminders to check your account because they will have moved around. Guaranteed, they're not going to stay static. So some will get bigger, some will get smaller, and a few will stay the same, and those percentages will change. So come back at least once a year. Twice a year is not a bad idea. Okay. And if you are on the withdrawal side of things, because remember, we serve all Feds at every stage. So if you're on the withdrawal side, make sure that you have a really nice 6-month cash cushion there. So you don't feel like you have to draw from TSP when the market's down, for example. Okay. So good, reasonable rule of thumb here. Based on your retirement timeline, invest how many years worth of income you want to keep in the fixed income side of your portfolio. I've seen the range go from 3 to 4 years all the way out to 10, depending upon your ability to tolerate risk. The average bear market is about 1.5 years. So if you've got enough on the bond side, you can, now take strategy, you can ride that out so that if you draw from your TSP and rebalance immediately during those down times, that's pretty close to drawing from the bond side to get through this. But again, that goes back to your risk tolerance. There's no blanket recommendation for all of this. You have to set up your policy. You have to stick with it. And here's a huge one. Make sure that you're consuming reliable information. Okay. And even if it's coming from us, not a bad idea to put a 24-hour rule on making a change to your portfolio. And if you're thinking about a big change, here's a great step. Before acting on it, write down the strong reasons for and against the move. So be deliberate about it. And of course, you always have the option of finding a reliable financial professional who will understand you and your goals and be able to discuss the pros and cons of these things. We've been committed to helping Feds navigate the financial futures for over 40 years. You know, don't let the baby face fool you. I've been around for a while. We'd be honored to serve as your partner with us. Feel free to reach out to us at meetings@stwserve.com. Or if nothing else, consume our content. We're putting it out there. We're putting a ton out to help you make these decisions so that you can make the best decision possible and work with clarity. And that is the best thing that you can do for how to have your TSP strategy and navigate through your life.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
And I think that we're almost out of time, right, Katelyn?
We are.
But have no fear. We will be back next week to bring you all the latest updates you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
And to make sure that you're there for that episode with bells on, turn the bell on. Subscribe to this podcast on our YouTube channel, FedLife, so that you never miss an episode. You can also subscribe on Spotify as well. Subscribing really does help, kind of, even if you don't need the notifications, it helps boost us in the algorithm. It helps us reach more Feds. And another way that you can do that for absolutely free is to share this episode or other episodes with your friends and colleagues so that they can help boost the signal. It's all of us kind of helping each other.
Absolutely. And for more information on these topics and way more, check out our blogs. That's at STWserve.com. And subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving. Then we'll ship the best stuff right to you each and every week. You don't even have to go looking.
And for those who want to dive even deeper into learning about your federal benefits and financial planning for FREDs, I highly recommend that you join us for one of our complimentary webinars. We do have a couple coming up here end of the month. TSP planning will be on January 27th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and I will be hosting that one. Dan will be hosting FEHB and Medicare on January 29th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And so it's guaranteed to be a good time.
Absolutely.
If you prefer a one-on-one approach, if you're kind of listening to this and you're like, oh, I need some help figuring out this investment strategy stuff. I need, I need to work on these planning items. I need to maybe address I have $1 million in TSP pre-tax and I have 100,000 in Roth pre-tax, like that example I used earlier, and I want to address that balance. Feel free to reach out to us at meetings@stwserve.com for a one-on-one financial planning consultation where we can go a little bit deeper.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. Happy New Year. I know we're not supposed to recognize dates and time and things like that, but I'm doing it anyway. And thank you for listening to Fed15. I'm Dan Sipe.
And I'm Katelyn Murray.
And we will see you next week.